Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This month, we are talking about healthy eating strategies. We have Mary Beth Torres, who is a registered dietitian with our Team Member Health and Wellness Center at Baptist Health. I'm excited to introduce her to you. She is the senior consultant for the Baptist team for the wellness program here. She has a master's in clinical and sports nutrition. She started here at Baptist in January 2020 and leads the strategy for the health and well-being and weight management initiatives for the Baptist team members in Jacksonville community. She has 20 years of experience coming into this in the nutrition field, specializing in medical nutrition therapy for adult and pediatric obesity management, bariatric surgery, and diabetes management. She has a passion for assisting clients finding balance and a personal approach to their health and well-being journey. She enjoys spending time with her husband and two boys, plays and watches team sports, and loves to find new ways to reinvent traditional dishes. Thank you, Mary Beth, for coming in today and talking to our cancer survivors. It's well appreciated, and I'll let you take over.
Sounds good. Thanks, Heather. All right. Well, I'm very excited to be part of this presentation. You know, one of the things I think I tend to talk a little bit about with people is just, you know, everyone should follow healthy eating habits that will reduce your risk of cancer. But this is a great opportunity, and I think it's particularly important for cancer survivors. So I'm very excited to be here today and just talk a little bit more detail. I think Heather has set up a great series with Dr. Robinson and Anne-Marie. They set a great foundation about nutrition recommendations. I'm going to go more in details, as Heather said, more around the strategy. So really, I don't talk about healthy eating. I talk about eating well after cancer. And, you know, eating well after cancer treatments by itself can't keep cancer from returning, but it can help rebuild your strength, rebuild your tissues, and improve overall energy levels. And I'm a big component of food as fuel. So let's really focus on foods that fuel us for everyday life to be our best. So a little bit what I really want to kind of touch on today, I do want to kind of help people understand that diet and weight play a critical role as a risk factor for cancer. But also, I feel like there's a lot of popular diet trends out there. So I am going to touch a little bit also on identifying some of the benefits and the risks. And as Heather mentioned, really strategies. And it may seem very basic and generic, but the thing is, I want people to feel comfortable and feel like they can integrate different, healthier, and eating well on a long-term basis. So we're going to talk about some just practical recommendations to eating well after cancer to maintain a healthy body weight. You know, during your treatments, it may have been a little bit different. There's a lot of focus on making sure you maintain that calorie level, make sure you maintain that protein. And we may be doing a bit of a switch after treatments, but I think those are very important. You're going to find there's a lot of similarities as well, too. Also understand that cancer diagnosis and treatment may have a financial hardship. So I really want to also give you some cost-cutting tips for eating well on a budget. I think that is working with clients over the last 20 years. Sometimes people just tell me it's way too expensive. And I really want to help you build those eating better and eating well into a budget, whatever your budget is, and not feel like you have to sacrifice to some of the less nutrient dense types of foods. And of course, last but not least, I'd love to share some community resources with you that are available to assist you with your personalized nutrition plan approach. I think Anne-Marie might have already kind of tackled some of those, but I'll emphasize some different ones. One thing before we get started, there is not a one size fits all approach. And I think that sometimes we get kind of stuck in that. So I want to make sure, and what my goal is when I do work with people is to make sure that they have evidence-based information to make sure that they can make informed decisions that fits best with their lifestyle and also their food preferences. Okay, food preferences are huge. Sometimes if you're feeding a family, that is even more of a challenge. One thing I definitely want to approach, starting probably in the early 2010s, they're really talking about modifiable risk factors, and weight being one of them. And this is just a little clips that talks about back in 2014, how weight is starting to outpace tobacco as a cause of cancer. So I think this is a really good touch because, throughout the presentation, probably throughout the series, your physicians, as well as Heather and everyone, has been talking about a healthy body weight. And what does that look like? But really making sure we can kind of focus on that healthy body weight. We all know tobacco is a modifiable risk factor, but nutrition and weight are two that I think we need to approach and really kind of look at. So as you see here, it just kind of breaks it up, the different leading risk factors of cancer, as you see here, diet and weight. So these are the two I'm going to kind of focus on, especially diet. They have some really strong anti-cancer effects, some specific foods, but just weight in general, I think, can be a controllable and modifiable risk factor. All right, so I'm sure if you've done any research on healthy eating, this infographic is nothing new to you. They always kind of say, eat more fruits and vegetables, eat less junk, and it's best not to drink alcohol because we know alcohol is also a risk factor of cancer. And you see the little bullet points, but I'm going to go into more detail. But one thing I do want to talk about, my role as a dietitian in working along someone to work on weight loss or their well-being journey, I also help them find a better relationship with food. There's just so much information out there. I think the digital world has made it very confusing, but what I'm finding is people sometimes don't have that really healthy relationship with food. It's not always about what you eat, but why you're eating. So we're going to touch on that a little bit too. But I will tell you this, we will focus on, and I'm sure you've heard this from a lot of your physicians, and as you're going through these series, is that recent studies have shown that sugar is actually the new smoking for cancer risk. We're going to talk about what kind of sugars. So in the studies, the sugar sweetened beverages, 100% juice, sodas, added sugars to foods, those are really those new, we're going to call it the new smoking for cancer risk. Those are things we're going to focus on and figure out how we could swap that out. And I think Anne-Marie kind of laid down a really great foundation during her last presentation, talking about just basic guidelines. Reduce your red meats, reduce your processed meats, reduce how much sugar you're consuming, sweetened sugar beverages especially, and also highly processed and refined grain products. Okay, that's very overarching, has a lot of information, and it's very broad that some people are kind of confused by what does that mean? What kind of foods? We're going to go over that today. I find that getting a little bit more granular really helps. And Dr. Robinson really set a really good foundation too. And we'll go over that within the next slide. So diet trends. I'm sure everyone has seen these types of diets out there. The keto light diet is the new one that's trending in 2021. Low glycemic, intermittent fasting, Whole30, gluten-free, low FODMAP, NOM, and Weight Watchers. There's nothing wrong with these. Just kind of want to tell you that. The one thing is that I think media and the world of digital information has confused consumers rather than actually educated consumers on evidence-based. I think what happens is that, evidence-based is thrown out there, but then all of a sudden people's thoughts are in there too. And honestly, there's a lot of conflicting information. Now, I'm not saying that these are not good choices. I think if you want to try any of these specific meal plans, I get rid of the word diet, meal plans, just to kind of start and make some changes. work with a professional to see the best way. Because what I find is some of these diet trends either limit or completely eliminate some really good macronutrients. And I'm sure, carbohydrates, proteins, fats. We're going to talk a little bit later on how we can swap out foods within those macronutrients that might be healthier and shown as a anti-cancer effect versus those who actually increase your risk of cancer. So we're going to be talking about quality of food rather than eliminating certain kind of food groups or food choices. Now, we probably tend to overconsume the wrong type. So you will have to kind of figure that out yourself. I like to empower people when it comes to that. One thing you're not going to find on here is the Mediterranean meal plan. The reason why is that, Dr. Robinson really set you up understanding some guidelines of Mediterranean meal plan. I think Mediterranean meal plan is a great start. We'll talk about that a little bit further. I don't say directly a Mediterranean meal plan because I've had some clients say that's just way too expensive. I'm not a fish eater. I don't like consuming some of those foods. But the thing is, when we talk about better quality foods, Mediterranean diet definitely is a great start and moving towards better quality foods. And if that's something that's a great guideline, definitely we're going to talk about how you can, that would be a great introduction to just having some guidance. Now, diets. I told you I'm not a big fan of the word diet. They tend to have some pitfalls, but I like to look at this when I talk to some of my clients about what diet means and what meal plan. So here's the definition of diet in the dictionary: a practice or interest followed for a time with exaggerated craze. Usually often claims quick weight loss, exaggerated results. Some of them are successful. Honestly, all meal plans, if you just make some changes, actually do create success on a short term. I really focus on long-term sustained results. Sometimes what people do is they start at a specific meal plan and then continue to work with a nutrition professional and then gradually work in others as they're maintaining their weight to make sure that it is a long-term meal plan that they can follow. A lot of diets, people either don't like the foods, it doesn't fit in their lifestyle, or even can be way too expensive. But you've also seen diets change over time. I think it went from Atkins to South Beach to paleo, just a variety of different things. And I think people are seeking guidance, and I get it. And that is important. So I'm hoping today you do get a little bit more opportunity on looking at better foods to swap out and what is considered a quality food, and see how you can empower and figure out how to kind of trade in some of those unhealthy habits versus overall habits. But working with a dietitian or a nutrition professional, honestly, is the best way. You can be in the driver's seat. Just let us kind of take a ride with you and help you with that guidance. All right, let's get straight into kind of some recommendations on overall what I usually talk about eating well. Mediterranean diet meal plan, as I mentioned before with Dr. Robinson, is a great start. So he reviewed that guidelines of just building more better quality fats, good quality high fiber foods, and leaner proteins into your meal plan. And that's usually the first recommendation or where I start with most of the clients that I work with. I said, let's look at the quality of your diet. Quality of that diet and really focusing on nutrient-packed foods can make a huge difference. And especially after cancer treatments is complete, maintaining that nutritious eating plan and routine can really, really help your body heal. And the more vitamins, minerals, fiber, lean proteins, and healthy fats that you incorporate into that meal plan, you're going to find you're going to be healing quicker and offer protection for the future for you. My next 3 slides will kind of go about the quality. So better quality food choices in each of those macronutrients that you commonly hear: carbs, protein, and fat. So you can get an idea of what's quality and what's not. Portion savvy definitely is important. As you see here, and I'm sure this isn't the first time you've heard this, is kind of the plate. How do you balance your plate? We tend to kind of put half meat, half carbs, and we forget about the fruits and the vegetables, the low-fat dairies. But as you see here, you don't want to eliminate any kind of food groups. It's more about swapping for better options. So when you look at your plate, when we talk about portions, when, for a meat portion, 3 to 4 ounces is usually the recommended amount. That is the size of the palm of your hand or to the first part of your knuckle. And that is it. It doesn't have to be a lot. And then, or a quarter of your plate. The other quarter of your plate is a whole grain, not a white refined grain, a whole grain or a starchy vegetable. And then the other half is left to try to fill up with fruits and vegetables and healthy fats and different options there. So really the first step in eating well for a healthy body weight is to retrain your plate. Look at your plate and slowly phase out processed foods. And when I say quality of diet, the more processed it is, the less quality it is, the more natural it is in its state, it's going to be better quality and it's going to be less processed. So your fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains, and healthy fats are really where you want to kind of focus on. Try to pass on package and process. I know it's really hard in our fast-paced life to really get away from all processed and all packaged foods, but really retraining and gradually kind of taking them out would be a great way to really improve and eating well after cancer and continuously reducing that risk. And of course, plant-based, that plants are power packed with nutrients. And we'll even go over some evidence-based science of different kind of foods that do have anti-cancer effects. But when we talk about body weight, before I move on to the next slide, I really want people to understand that the goal for reduction in body weight is around reducing body fat. Okay. Our goal is not to lose as much weight as fast as we can, because a lot of times the quicker you lose the weight, you're also losing water weight and muscle mass. And sometimes that's a hard thing to kind of gain back when we naturally lose muscle mass every single year as we age, unfortunately, but that's just part of life. But reducing body fat is really also going to be a key driver around reducing your risk, because the more body fat triggers a lot of the cancer hormones. So I think that is, as you're losing weight, the goal is to lose body fat. And I know this may seem a little bit slow, but long-term weight loss, 5% at 3 months. So if you're a 200 pound person, 10 pounds in 3 months can really improve and reduce body fat, or 10% at 6 months is usually the goal. And that's 20 pounds if you're a 200 pound person in 6 months. And a lot of times in our society, we don't look at that as successful. But the impact that it has on chronic condition management, as well as cancer risk reoccurrence, is very beneficial. So I know when we keep on talking about body fat, what is healthy body fat? So just wanted to kind of bring that up. All right, specifics. You say, Mary Beth, eat carbs, don't eat carbs. So we tend to bucket these macronutrients into the same bucket, but the truth is our bodies use these types of foods. I'll say good carbs, bad carbs. I start with carbs because the carbs tend to be the enemy. But take, for instance, this carbohydrates. They've been known to be the culprit for weight gain, and also glucose intolerance. And glucose intolerance is linked to different aspects in chronic condition. But as I mentioned before, sugary beverages, I'm going to say 100% juice. I'm just going to go there, and sodas. That's the easiest way to explain it. those studies have known as the new smoking, and increases the risk for the cancer and actually feeds cancer cells. So those added carbohydrates that really have no nutrients, no vitamins, no minerals, nothing, are being the ones that are really feeding those cancer cells and actually increase that risk. And on the flip side, your carbohydrates in their natural states, as you see on the left-hand side, your fruits, your vegetables, beans, and whole grains, they've been linked to cancer prevention, where the refined on your right-hand side, your bad carbs, have been linked to increased risk of cancer. So it's not the type of macronutrients, it's those micronutrients and the nutrients that were actually part of that natural food that we stripped away and got rid of. So we lost the nutrients, we take away the fiber through the processing, and we've added sugar and fat to make it taste better. So as you've seen here on our left-hand side, the good carbs are these, your fruits, your vegetables, starchy vegetables. There's nothing wrong with corn and sweet potatoes and white potatoes and butternut squash. It's how we make them. We put them with tons of butter. We fry them mostly. So, that's another thing you got to take that in consideration, is how you're making your foods. We'll go over some oils, because if you talk about healthy fats, you may realize you might be able to make some of these with the healthy fats and combine a really good plate. Of course, your bad carbs, everyone's kind of heard, if you've been on a diet, or everyone's talk about your snack foods, your baked goods, your processed foods, candies, and so forth. Those are the ones that are really having true cancer causing effects. All right, let's go to fats next. The fact on fats, and this is really the American Heart Association recommendations. I utilize this recommendation because across the board, the quality of food, healthy fats, bad fats, healthy carbs, bad carbs, if you want to call it that, as well as good, better and lean proteins. Those, I think, across the board are recommendations across all chronic condition management, and especially as we're trying to find better body weight. So with fats, you have a lot of different oil types, which are your unsaturated, poly and monounsaturated, your olive oil, canola oil, sunflower oil, sesame oil, avocado oil. Anything that's liquid at room temperature is are better options. And those are healthy fats. If they're solid at room temperature, I would be concerned and just limit your heavy, your butters, your lard, even your coconut oil. I know there's some challenges around coconut oil, but if you're already using olive oil, canola oil, avocado oil, if those are a better option and you're already using those, don't switch those out. Continue using those. Now, if you're using butter, the next step could be coconut oil, but eventually see if olive oil, canola oil, avocado oil, those could be a little bit better. And canola oil is not as pricey. I'd probably say that's the most cost-effective of all the different oils, but you get great fats from nuts and fatty fish and avocados. There's just great ways to add some good healthy fats. And then proteins, of course, are super important. Most people do get enough protein, though I think we want to make sure that we're trying to consume the leaner proteins because they just have less of the saturated fat and less calories. But look, there's a variety of different options. You get it in eggs, beans, dairy products, lean, and I call it like low fat or lean dairy products, as well as fish. And, beef can be added, but, we talked about limiting. I'd probably keep beef and lean beef about once a week, red meat and processed meats, limit those as much as you can. And then also your skinless chicken breast. Now, when we talk about cost cutting, we will kind of get into different ways, but you'll find here, there's plenty of opportunity for protein. You don't need as much protein after cancer treatment as you probably were during your treatments. Okay. All right. I'm going to get to, I went through kind of quality of foods. Let's get to foods that may protect against cancer. There is evidence-based science around these types of foods and parts of the foods that actually affect cancer growth. So they actually slow the growth of cancer cells and protect it, especially plant-based foods. There's a lot of naturally occurring anti-cancer effects. I'll just mention for the sake of the presentation, you can see here, there's a variety of different chemicals, but phytochemicals, polyphenols, those are great already chemicals that are found in naturally occurring plant-based foods that have anti-cancer effects. Your red, your orange, yellow, dark green leafy vegetables, apples, berry, green tea, even that's a little bit different out of the fruits and vegetables, berries. This is spices. That's why we recommend a lot of times using just natural herbs and spices to season your food rather than sugar and fat, which is the most common way for us to season a lot of our food because our palates are used to that fat and that sugar, and not realizing that herbs and spices can really do and really help reduce any kind of naturally occurring calories that are found in those ways that we tend to flavor things. And then also onions and garlic and cabbage and Brussels sprouts. There's a lot of different variety of options on these anti-cancer effective food. And they're all plant-based. They're not processed in a factory. So including these more frequently can be very helpful. Also, dietary fiber just kind of helps move the food quickly through our digestive tract. So, colon cancers, certain kind of cancers, dietary fiber, the more you consume, and the recommendation is 25 grams for females and 35 grams for males. Traditionally, the typical American diet is less than 15 grams. So ways to get that in if you are just trying to get more fruits and vegetables, but also your black beans, legumes, beans in general. Those are great sources, not just fiber, but they also have, they're better quality foods choices and options. And there are some new whole grain breads and pastas out there. I usually recommend don't be that all the consumption of your fiber, definitely limit and be more balanced, more fruits, more vegetables. Your whole grain breads and pastas are going to be more calorie dense. So if you consume larger quantities, they actually will be too calorie dense and kind of negate the effort of maintaining a healthy body weight. Then, of course, antioxidants. That's another thing that literally gets stripped out when we process foods. So our beta carotene, our lycopene, our vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E that are found in such these variety of different foods that people don't realize as we process our foods, they get rid of these really rich macronutrients or vitamins and minerals. And that's one thing we don't talk about. Again, we're so focused on the macros where we forget about that these certain foods have micronutrients that are so important and are essential for our body. And we're supposed to get it through food, not through supplements. Supplement is okay. I always use it as this: use your diet as the main way that you get these vitamins and minerals. Taking a supplement is just an insurance policy, right? Everyone uses insurance policies on their cars, their homes, their houses. It's a in case you can't get it, but really, really focus on the vitamins and minerals that you need in your meal plan. Because if not, you're just eating empty calories and empty nutrients. You're not getting them, and your body doesn't absorb the supplements the way that you think they do compared to what you get when you're consuming food. All right, grilling. Okay, I'm adding this. Grilling is a great lower fat cooking method. However, there's been some conversation and talk around grilling and just charred food. In the way that when you char your food or when you burn your food, There are harmful substances in grilling when grilling meats, especially when you cook at a really high temperature, or you are smoking your meats, or flames are flaring up because the juices are spilling into down into the heat source and back up on your food. So I do recommend grilling is a great way to cook. However, if you are going to grill, really try to bar the char. Try to make sure not to have really charred food. Go lean if you can, so you don't have as much fat. With the fat and juices is pretty much just fat that's dripping in as you are poking it and turning it and so forth. Go low and slow, and then try to marinate your meat. The more you marinate your meat, it actually has a layer of protection around the chars and these harmful substances called HCAs and PHAs that are PANHs that are actually forming when you do have this flame. So these are just, there isn't 100% evidence around it. There's more estimated, or they just really, they have it. It's not as strong as just doing better quality foods, but it is worth kind of looking at and making sure that you're finding different ways to really prevent. So it was worth mentioning, because I know people love some summer grilling. Can't go wrong with them grilling. You're always out there. We're in Florida. We enjoy the weather out there. Okay. So beyond quality and portion of food in your meal plan, I've recognized working with people over the last 20 years that sometimes food has more of a emotional connection, and following through, it's just not about eat this, improve this, and so forth. There's a mindset and that emotional connection that really sometimes is a barrier and hinders our success moving forward, especially trying to achieve a healthy meal plan or a healthy body weight. So here's some recommendations I think that can be helpful for you that are beyond improve the quality, improve the quantity. I'm sure you've heard that before. First things first, think of it as a meal plan. Sometimes when we put a mindset of diet, we think short term, achieve a goal, it's done. The problem is with nutrition, you have to eat to live. So you got to find something, and to maintain a healthy body weight, it's a journey that everyone is on all the time. And so having that mindset of a meal plan is going to be really, really important. And this is where I find sometimes is the turning point for people that I work with. That's why I have it as the first bullet point, is because they really see I have to fuel for food and nutrition, not because I just have to, kind of get it through and I'm just going to choose, or for emotional sakes. So just if you feel like you're too much on a diet mindset, see if you could kind of change that. And if that creates a more positive versus negative approach to discovering what works best for you. And of course, there's nothing called perfection. So balance is really the key. Can you go to a birthday party and have a piece of cake? Absolutely. If you had a soda once in a while, is that going to be? No, that's not going to be end all be all. So meal plans don't have to be perfection. And I think this is that mindset that I was talking about, is that when people are okay, now having cake every single day because it's a treat after dinner and that's just the norm, that's where we have to kind of move away from. So I always do recommend, as you're kind of making some changes to achieve a healthy body weight and more nutritious foods, don't be afraid to just kind of monitor what you're eating. I always recommend, in this digital age, MyFitnessPal has a free app that you can kind of just log what you're consuming, and it will kind of give you some ideas of where you can improve and where you may see your trends of, oh gosh, I didn't realize I do this every single day. Let me cut it back. Let me kind of make some changes there. Because really, it could also maybe help you identify if there's emotional triggers tied to the food that you're consuming, and practice building a healthy relationship with food. This is where I recommend working with a nutrition professional, a registered dietitian, or even a behavioral counseling, a behavioral specialist can even happen. If you find you're having more emotional triggers around food, they can kind of help you identify why, around why you may be doing it, and kind of what's tempting you, what are your comfort foods, and then maybe look at the grassroots behind it and help you create a healthier environment for success. That's one thing I think we really gear up and try to eat healthy, but then we sometimes don't realize there's a emotional tie behind it, or a social tie. Okay, family gatherings, you're always going to have food. And sometimes people go, I can never eat this. And and one day you make or break. One day is not a make or break. It's what you do every single day. And if you fall down the rabbit hole of continuing the habits, then that is where you're going to have some challenges. If you look at, say, one day, treat myself, that's good. I'm not perfect. All right, let's get back to eating more nutritious foods, and let's get back to my eating plan. That's a success. So, and then I think I talked about just staying hydrated, limit your sugary beverages. It's the new smoking, guys. So those sugars have empty calories. There's no need to drink those. Make breakfast and lunch your main meals. This is not something we do. We tend to not eat enough during the day, and then it kind of triggers cravings, and our glucose, our body can actually tolerate foods better at breakfast and lunch based on our circadian rhythm than it does dinner time. So I think as a whole, as a society, we just have to kind of change some of the little basic things that we normally do. And I've seen some people make some great strides and efforts by just focusing on one thing. So don't feel like everything on this list, everything that I'm talking about, you have to make change to be successful. It's really little bit at a time. And that's why I say retrain your plate, retrain little things and make some changes. Dining out is a killer in our society. One meal dining out can be 1,000 to 2,000 calories. That could be all the calories for the day. And they don't always give you the best quality of food. So we're going to go back to that quality aspect. I think, Heather, when my introduction, one of the things I love to do is take traditional meals and dishes and see how I can make them a little bit healthier. Cooking light and eating well are two of my favorite recipe sites that actually help you say, I love lasagna, okay, or a pasta dish or something. It actually will kind of help you integrate and make it a healthier meal. It even gives you nutrition information for that meal and so forth. So I know not everyone cooks, but they also have a lot of recommendations for meals under 15 minutes. All busy families and moms, you're trying to get it on the table really quick. Just, try some of these out, research, look, find like 16 or 10 to-go dinners. Make it really easy on yourself. Couple to-go lunches, make it super easy on yourself. Do not have to do everything and too much at once. All right. I mentioned cost cutting tips. Financial hardship, that can really kind of put some challenges within eating healthier a lot of times. And honestly, many people do believe you have to spend a lot of money to eat healthy. However, that doesn't always have to be the case. Most of the not so healthy foods tend to be convenient meals, fast foods, and snacks. And they can stack up pretty quickly, surprisingly. This is one thing I do work with clients, is that I talk about how we can fit the types of foods, the preferred foods that they like, and foods willing to try into their meal plan. And actually, some people work on dining out budgets and they set themselves a grocery budget. Surprisingly, we've had a lot of success with people looking at this angle and introducing more seasonal produce that actually is from the area. Northeast Florida is rich with a lot of different fruits and vegetables and produce and local stuff. I don't recommend for you to go to a Whole Foods, way too expensive. Everything doesn't have to be organic. I know Dr. Robinson talked about it. It doesn't always fit in everyone's meal plan, but if it does, an organic option is healthier, I will tell you, or better for you, just because they use less pesticides. If it has a peel on it, don't get it organic if you have a limited budget. If it's like your strawberries, your apples, where you're eating the whole type of fruit, that's where you'd want to focus on the organic option if it fits within your budget. Just consuming more fruits and vegetables and low-fat dairy right now, and better quality foods, I think, is the more important. And then gradually, if you see a sale, Publix has great buy one, get one free sometimes on organic fruits and vegetables, go for it. And don't be afraid to buy frozen or canned fruits and vegetables. Sometimes I buy too much fruit and not everyone eats it. So I actually go and freeze it, and then I make it for smoothies and I just have it available. But I budget, I watch my budget. I count my grocery list and what I buy in the grocery and what I do for eating out all the time, every single month. I've done that for the last 10 years. Meal planning, cooking at home, I buy generic. I try to do more plant-based proteins, beans, dairy products, especially beans, nuts. Those are great to get a little bit of protein without having tons of meat. And I'll tell you, my husband, if he sees red meat and bacon, he's so excited because I very rarely have it, but he does prefer those things. So I have to kind of create those balance. And honestly, meat is really per ounce costs more. And the leaner meats, of course, are more expensive than the less quality kind of meat products. But there's a good balance, as I said. But there's a lot of different varieties and what you can do. Just stick with some key principles when shopping, selecting, and preparing your food, and only introduce kind of a couple things at a time. Don't try to do it all at one time and expect that you're going to be successful. It's going to be very overwhelming. You're going to feel like you've done way too much and you can't stick with it, especially for how busy we are and we try to do everything. So you got to say, okay, how do I find a 15-minute meal that's really quick to make and something that could be very simple? So just some cost-cutting tips. Don't think that eating healthy has to really be expensive. There's a lot of opportunities on ways to really save and then also feel like you can still introduce fresh fruits and vegetables and low-fat dairy products and lean meats and healthy fats. So last but not least, definitely want to share with you guys some community resources. Marie kind of walked you through a great website through Baptist. We have Center of Healthy Living, and the JCA has a wellness connection where it offers a variety of programs led by clinical and certified coaches that can walk you through and help you with a variety of resources. One of the dietitians that works with me and myself, I help with the Community Center of Healthy Living and the Wellness Connection at times because they just need someone, and a registered dietitian, nutrition professional is needed to really help the client or the community member that they're working with. And this is a service available to the community. Marie showed you the websites with the multiple locations. I have here listed right here on the bottom here. If you go to baptistjacks.com, HLC, which is Healthy Living Center, or JCA, you can find locations. However, if you're interested, you can schedule an appointment with by calling them at 904-202-4500, or you can also email wellnesscoach@bmcjax.com. My recommendation is if you do reach out and interested in scheduling an appointment with one of the coaches to kind of help you with meal planning, just lifestyle modification, and weight loss, then you want to make sure that when you do email them or call them, just tell them what location may be best for you. And they have registered nurses, we have registered dietitians, behavioral psychologists, and wellness coaches. So a variety of different resources can help you out. But also, if you are interested in learning on your own and you want to empower yourself to kind of figure out where's the best places I can find some additional resources. You know, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, we are registered dietitians who really do give some evidence-based recommendations. And licensed dietitian nutritionists really lead that education. However, there's a great website that I just ran into as I was searching this presentation, the American Institute for Cancer Research, and they're starting some coping with cancer in the kitchen. They have some great videos, great resources, recipes on there that you can search and look, and it's looked like it would be a great support. And it seems like they're actually trying to just build a little bit more. It's fairly new, but it's something from a support group, informational and educational as well. So I really enjoyed it. Some of the recommendations I had on here were part of that American Institute for Cancer Research website, just because I thought that was great. And that is it, just a couple references.
Thank you, Mary Beth. One question that came in was about the EWG, the Environmental Working Group, Dirty Dozen list. Do you know, can you speak to that?
Yes. I think, the Dirty Dozen list. Yeah, that is where, that is where most of those types of foods are more heavily used with pesticides. I mean, your strawberries, apples, those that you tend to consume without appeal tend to be on there. They are recommended. Those are the ones that I think if you're going to buy organic, those are the list that you need to buy organic from, if that fits within your budget, and even work with the dietitian to figure out where you can potentially go and get those as organic, because you are going to have less pesticides within those than the ones that are non-organic.
Well, that's all we have today, guys. Thank you so much for your time. We'll use this over and over in the Survivorship Clinic, if I can say. So I really appreciate it. And let me know if you have any questions, and I will make sure that I get you in touch with Mary Beth. Take care.